Welcome to Asian ID. Have you ever witnessed a story ignite before it even had the chance to fully exist, as if fate itself had already decided its brilliance on a cold January morning? When the announcement of the Vermilion Kiss surfaced, did anyone truly expect that a simple beginning would explode into a storm of anticipation within mere hours? As millions of eyes gathered and countless hearts leaned closer, wasn't it clear that something deeper than hype was unfolding beneath the surface in a world saturated with heavy narratives of crime, power, and ambition? Haven't audiences grown weary of stories that demand more breadth than they give? Isn't there a quiet longing, especially among the young, for something softer? Something untouched by cynicism, something that feels like a memory rather than a performance. Familiar tropes of campus romance once flooded the screen only to become predictable echoes. Didn't they leave behind a strange emptiness instead of satisfaction? And then, like a whisper cutting through noise, came a story built not on spectacle but on something fragile and achingly real, mutual, silent love. Doesn't that alone feel like a rebellion? What is it about the idea of two people loving each other quietly, unknowingly, that makes the heart tremble more than grand declarations ever old? Is it because hidden affection mirrors our own untold stories, the ones we never dared to speak aloud? Timing, however, is a cruel judge. Isn't it? A perfect story released at the wrong moment fades into obscurity, just as an ordinary one placed at the right time can shine like destiny. Wouldn't you agree? So when this drama chose to emerge exactly when audiences were yearning for sincerity, wasn't it less of a coincidence and more of an inevitability? Yet even the most perfect timing collapses without the right faces to carry its soul, doesn't it? Once Hae-in, known for her emotionally heavy roles, stepped into the quiet skin of a reserved high school girl. Wasn't the transformation enough to spark curiosity? How could someone who once embodied pain and vengeance now become a silent presence in a classroom, her strength hidden behind lowered eyes and unfinished notes? And when Zhang Hongming, whose past performances thrived on restrained longing, took on the role of a rebellious genius who hides tenderness behind indifference, didn't that create a tension too compelling to ignore? There's something irresistibly magnetic about a character who seems to reject the world, yet secretly orbits around one single person. When his gaze lingers just a second too long, when his silence speaks louder than confession, don't we feel as though we are witnessing something dangerously intimate? Put them together, one carrying quiet resilience, the other masking devotion with defiance, and doesn't their chemistry feel less like acting and more like inevitability? Isn't it as if their characters were never written, but simply discovered, waiting somewhere between memory and imagination? But beyond casting and timing, what truly anchors a story if not its emotional truth? What makes a narrative unforgettable is not its twists or its spectacle, but the way it reflects the smallest, most human moments. Isn't it? What is more human than sitting beside someone every day, sharing silence, while an entire universe of unspoken feelings grows between you? The story begins simply: a girl who barely earns her place among the elite, a boy who stands effortlessly at the top. Yet doesn't simplicity often carry the deepest weight when two parallel lives are forced to intersect by something as trivial as a seating arrangement? Isn't it fascinating how destiny disguises itself as coincidence? How many lives have been altered by moments so small they were almost ignored as they sit side by side, exchanging nothing but glances and passing shadows of attention? Isn't the distance between them both microscopic and infinite at the same time? When love exists without acknowledgement, without certainty, without even the courage to take form, doesn't it become something purer, and perhaps more painful? This is not a story of instant passion or dramatic confession, is it? It is a slow unfolding, a quiet accumulation of moments, a borrowed pen, a shared silence, a glance that lingers too long. Aren't these the details that stay with us long after everything else fades? And perhaps that is why people are drawn to it so fiercely, because it reminds them not of fantasy, but of something they once lived and lost. Wouldn't you say? Who hasn't sat in a classroom, pretending to focus, while their entire world revolved around someone just inches away? Who hasn't carried a secret so fragile that even acknowledging it felt like it might shatter in the end? What makes the story powerful is not whether the two characters end up together, but whether they dare to recognize what already exists between them. Isn't that the real question? Because love, when left unspoken, does not disappear, it lingers, it transforms, it becomes something both beautiful and haunting, doesn't it? And as the story moves forward, drawing viewers deeper into its quiet storm, doesn't it begin to blur the line between fiction and memory? At what point do we stop watching them and start seeing ourselves? When the final scene eventually arrives, whether it brings union or separation, will it truly matter as much as the journey itself, or will what lingers be something far more unsettling? The realization of all the words we never said, all the chances we never took, all the feelings we chose to hide. And when the screen fades to black, leaving only silence behind. Won't the most haunting question remain not about them, but about us? What would have happened if we had been just a little braver? Thank you for watching the video. See you again.